So agenda review. Wednesday, October 29th, 4 p.m. We're gonna go over some things, so we'll start with the proclamation for
Right, that's ready to go, so that's,
Munster Junior Women's Club,
right.
and then we go into the different ordinances. So ordinance number 1996. Amendment to Schedule A, second reading.
Right, this is the second read. There's some fees there and a set of fines that are being increased. There's no real change from first reading on this, so all the fees would go into effect after you adopt it. The fines for the false alarms has to wait until we get those problem.
Very good. Any discussion on that? So next, resolution number 2157, the NDOT signing authority for the CCMG 2026.
This is something that council has done, each time we go out for CCMG. The NDOT requires that council state who can sign the CCMG documents, and they prefer it to be done by a resolution. So I believe that just today about got the application in for next year's CCMG, so we need this resolution passed, and it would name Jim as town manager with the authority to sign the contract documents. And all of that, the bidding, all of that, the documents will come to council for approval prior to that sign.
Very good, very good. On to ordinance number 1997, the 2025 park bond ordinance, first reading.
So we engaged Baker Tilly to help us determine how best to structure the GO bonds this year, and it was determined to issue separate ones for the general obligation and park. You've already approved everything for the general obligation bond. The park board has been going through their process over the last 2 months or so. They have completed everything that they need to do, various resolutions, a public hearing. The final step is for the council to approve an ordinance authorizing the sale of the bonds. Because it's gone through this other public process, bond council is recommending that this be adopted on one reading, on the first reading. So you would need to have 2 motions. It's explained on the memo as well, where you move to suspend the rules and waive the readings. You need unanimous consent among everyone in order for that to happen, and then you would have a second motion to adopt the actual ordinance.
Very good. Any discussion on that? So, ordinance 1998, additional appropriations, first reading,
Yes.
number 6.
Yes, we have 2 funds that we're looking for an additional appropriation. One is the Cumulative Capital Development Fund, CCD, and there's a true-up portion with the Axon body camera contract that was approved earlier, so it'll be used for that and for some other software licensing that we have that's needed. And then the other fund is the Waterworks Revenue Bond and Interest Fund. So we closed down the bond a couple of weeks ago. The first debt payment is due January 1st, which means we have to actually make the payment in December of this year. But right now, there's not appropriations to make that payment. The funds are being set aside to make the payment. We have the cash. We just need the permission to do it. And so that's what those 2 are for.
Any questions on that? So, ordinance 1999, the 2025 budget reduction.
So
First reading.
when we go through all the funds, we do a review of them about this time of year to look, are there any ones that need additional appropriation? Are there any ones that can be reduced? And we are recommending that we'll have 12 funds that would have a reduction. And what this does, it's basically the opposite of what the additional appropriation is. It's saying we have appropriations, we have permission to spend, but we're not going to. So we want to reduce that amount, and that helps us put us in a better position budget-wise January 1st of next year. Right now, if you're looking on Trello, the memo and the ordinance all says that it's a draft. It's a payroll week this week. I wanted to wait until payroll got posted this week. With each payroll, we get smarter about how much appropriations we're going to need. So though those numbers will be finalized before the before the agenda is posted on Friday. Most of these are because of the reductions are coming from reductions in payroll costs. The biggest one is, as we know, it takes a long time to hire police officers. So there was more appropriation than what was needed. So that number is being reduced. We have some other places. There's just general staff turnover that causes a reduction in the expenses that we're going to pay. And the memo outlines some of the other details with some of the other funds and what led to not needing as much appropriation.
So you're saying that it's reducing the approval amount or?
The amount that we can actually, it's right. It's both. We're not going to spend the money, so we don't need the appropriations. And because of the way the budget process works, if we take a reduction now, it frees up for next year to take. We would have that money available to support the budget next year. It helps us avoid an extra step.
Sounds good to me. Any questions? On to the next one, ordinance 2000, 2026 salary ordinance, first reading.
So by statute, council needs to authorize certain things by the end of the year from a payroll perspective. They have to set the compensation for elected officials, and they have to set the certified first-class patrolman's salary. The proposed ordinance does all of that. As we discussed during budget time, it's contemplating a 2% cost of living increase for all employees. That would, the matrix, the items that you see, all the pay rates for all the regular full-time employees, firefighters, all the elected officials would increase by 2%. The first-class patrolman's rate would go up by 2% as well. The park board is expected to approve their pay rates for their seasonal part-time people that do like the lifeguarding and the various programs. In talking with Mark Heinz, he's not anticipating changing those rates from the previous year. So there'll be no change there. There are a few final adjustments that are being made next year as a result of the new pay structure that was instituted in 2024. And then there's also some minor language changes just to provide consistency across documents. All the other benefits related to health insurance, park discounts, that kind of thing, that all remains unchanged.
Any questions on that? Brings us to ordinance 2001, the Kenmara Development Rezoning, first reading.
This is a rezone of 60 acres, the former Hanson Country Club, a portion of that. They're looking to rezone the property from a CB4B to a PUD for a specifically use of technology park as outlined for the state statute, Indiana Code 36-7-32-7. This time it's just for the uses. They will be returning for additional design standards, guidelines, bulk standards, for additional review.
Very good. Any questions on that? It takes us to the opioid fund request.
So the town receives monies from the national opioid settlement that happened back in 2022. We've been receiving money. There's some that have restrictions on them, some that do not. They're tracked into separate funds as we're required to do. In order to spend that money, you have to not only follow the budget process, but council needs to approve the uses of it. Right now, the only use that's been approved is $6,000 annually to help support the DARE program. What we're asking for now is earlier this year, police department hired the social worker, and the intention was that a portion of that person's salary would come from these funds. So that's the one part. We were requesting $25,000 each year to help offset those costs. And then an additional $1,000 each year for the social worker and other appropriate staff to have training that would be related to uses allowed within the opioid fund. This would be a one-time approval. We would not have to come back to you every year and ask you to use these funds for this purpose. We will have to come back though to get appropriations as needed.
Very good. Any questions on that? That brings us to the last one, Barnes and Thornburg lobbying agreement.
There is one other item that's on your other agenda there that you didn't made on, and you'll missed it on the agenda.
Oh, okay, yeah, the G is Centennial Village tax abatement.
Right, so this is a continuation of the prior discussions about the tax abatement for the owner occupied condominiums at Centennial Village. So this is before you to approve it. The documentation we received from Matt Kimmel includes the parking spaces. There was a question previously about whether or not those should be included as part of the abatement. I believe the understanding is that we're willing to include that. If that's the case, then this will be ready for the council to approve at Monday's meeting.
I shifted my position to include. Just, you know.
Dave, I didn't hear that. You've changed your position, you said?
Yes, I changed my position to approve it.
Any other questions on that? So that brings us to the final one, the Barnes and Thornburg lobbying agreement.
Right, this item was one of the items we spoke about a few times with our cost cutting measures. We spend about $150,000 a year for Barnes and Thornburg to provide essentially lobbying services at the state level. And it was listed on our items to consider for reducing the cost. We don't use their lobbying services on a constant basis. As far as asking them to reach out to legislators and try to advocate for our interests. So the thought is we can save some money, quite a bit of money, actually, if we end the agreement. But we don't want to stop using them if we need to. So the alternative is to engage them on an as-needed basis. So if there's particular legislation that comes up that we really need some assistance with their lobbying efforts, advocating for our interests, then we can engage them specifically for that type of lobbying. So what we would need to do here is if the council's in favor of ending our agreement, then the council would have to give that authorization to end the agreement with them. And per the agreement, all that's required is that we give them notification that we're terminating the agreement.
Or weren't we having them do some stuff with the water, like the lead lines and that meeting we had with the.
Right, they were helping us with an earmark for that. But I don't know that that's moving anywhere separately. That's moving along the track. We gave them the information. And then they were waiting for the call to submit those. And I don't know that that has happened. That's a call that would come from Congress. And I don't know that that has happened yet. But that's the kind of thing that we could for a single specific engagement, say, we want to engage you to help us work that through.
Some of the other services they provide, we can provide ourselves internally, or else there's other sources. So as far as monitoring legislation that may affect the municipality, that's something staff has done and can do. And through AIM, they provide information on the legislation. And we also have AIM itself, to represent, to lobby for us as municipalities. And that's something we learned about when we went to the conference last week.
Is that a fee for service with them, or is it?
That's part of the annual membership cost. That's not a separate fee that you pay.
Very good.
Right, so there's other means of, advocating for our interests, either directly ourselves, monitoring legislation, or working with AIM to do that for us.
Did we, a couple of weeks ago, I thought when we talked about it, we talked about like reaching out. Far, did we do that?
We
I-
have-
Yes, we tried to talk with them at the conference we went to last week, the AIM conference. And we didn't make that connection. And then last Friday, Wendy, myself and Tricia made a call. It was to
To Jake Germain.
Jake Germain and left a voice message. And he hadn't gotten back to us and I called him back today. Didn't return the call. I called him back today, left another voice message. So waiting for him to return my call. But I will have the conversation with him and explain the situation we're in, you know, that we are trying to reduce our costs by ending the agreement. We'd be able to do that, but we would want to engage their services basically on an as-needed basis for specific legislation.
Do we have anyone else that we can talk to?
Not on that, in that realm of the practice. The person that we deal with most does our bond work. And I don't think that he's the one that, I think Jake's the one who we did really good talking with. There is, that Mike Logan was the person we worked with for that earmark, so he maybe we can't get through to Jake, he can get back to us and then see if we can get hold of him.
I'll follow up with Jake again tomorrow.
Now, my understanding is Bob Grand is retired or moved up to senior status, super
I think
senior
something,
status.
I think something like that.
He's no longer the managing partner, but he's still practicing and on staff. Okay.
Maybe we can reach out to him. If we don't have anybody else that we reach, Bob knows us. Done a lot of work with us. Grew up and graduated here from us.
I'll try.
How do we get a hold of him? We got a couple of people.
Right.
Sure.
Any other questions on that? So the rest of it, consent agenda, and the redevelopment commission. Pretty much,
And we are gonna have executive session.
we'll have an executive session post the meeting.
Yeah, the notice has been issued and posted.
Very good. I think that's everything, right? So that's all, folks.
Running.
All right, very good.
Crime Watch